Hello, I'm Kerry, Bloedorn, a local historian and Hodag enthusiast. In this video series, we'll be talking about the Great Pine Beast, or as most people know it as, the Rhinelander Hodag. We'll talk about its origins, its discovery, the hoax, and the culture that has built up around this legendary creature within the Rhinelander community for over 100 years, to become a well-known part of Wisconsin heritage. So let's take a walk deep into the pine groves, along the banks of the mighty Wisconsin River, past the unique wetlands of the area, and into the historical record as we learn about the famous Hodag. Come on. The origins of the Hodag are shrouded in mist similar to those that come off the Wisconsin River on a hot day from the turning of a cool night. There are many stories about how the Hodag lore came to be that stretch from Maine to Montana and even into the watery depths of the ancient world. Anywhere forests were being cut as America expanded from east to west, there were lumber camps, and in those camps loggers. And from those woodsmen's mouths came the tallest tales in the annals of American history. Stories of Paul Bunyan, the greatest lumberjack to ever live, stories of his great size and feats of strength, stories of strange creatures that inhabited the vast, dark, primeval forests of the North American continent seem to have no end and no bounds. One particular story that developed in the lumber camps across the Pine Belt involved what became of a lumber oxen that passed on. Sitting on the deacon seat in a log bunkhouse deep in the forest, men would tell of these mighty beasts of burden having died from a hard life of labor, and then ceremonially placed on a funeral pyre to be burned to ash. From this fire arose the spirit of the dead oxen, and into the forest its spirit became a Hodag. Descriptions of this spirit varied from place to place, but they all had similar features of the ox it came from. A stout and sturdy frame, oxen-like horns, spikes along its back, ending with a sharp, pointed tail. Fur-bearing and yet lizard-like, with tusks for teeth and razor-sharp claws fore and aft. Its physical manifestation was beastly and ancient, such as a Jurassic creature might be. Some stories say the Hodag was named after a tool called a grub hoe, or a hodag. Its exact origins lost in transit as tales moved from camp to camp on the lips of those that told them in the dim, smoky light of the logging camp bunkhouse. But long before these United States took shape on the continent, the native peoples of this land passed down their verbal history, which included spirits for all things on earth above and below. From the high peaks and cloud-strewn skies to the deepest waters of the Great Lakes. One of those spirits is known as Mishipishu, identified today as a water panther spirit. These most revered and feared creatures were the controlling force of the waterways and deep lakes of what is now the Midwest and the southern Canadian regions. In southern Wisconsin and elsewhere, these water panthers were reflected in earthen mounds built by the peoples that walked this land thousands of years ago. In the Great Lakes area, they were said to be protectors of the vast copper reserves of the Keweenaw Peninsula, on Isle Royal, and elsewhere along Lake Superior, including their purported home island of Michipicoten. These early inhabitants of the continent, including the Anishinaabe people, gave respect and laid tobacco down to honor Mishipishu before crossing its watery domain in the hopes of safe passage. Along Lake Superior, just north of Sault Ste. Marie, can be found the Agawa rock pictographs, a several hundred-year-old Native American rock artwork depicting Mishipishu. You'll see it has a striking resemblance to the creature that became known as the Hodag. It is highly likely that stories of Mishipishu were picked up by early Europeans that came to North America, and as is often done throughout history via verbal tales, molded into the folklore that ended up in those early American logging camps. Today in Rhinelander, home of the Hodag, we pay homage to these origins by sharing the stories of how the great pine beasts came to be. But part of the continuing intrigue of the legends and lore is the mystery they are shrouded in, with roots going back potentially thousands of years into the ancient past.